30 questions in 30 days, day 22. Wait, 22. Wait up. Day 22. Today's question comes from Chrissy via Instagram, and she says, Andrew, how do you know that when a relationship is rough, if you need to work harder or if it's time to let go? Really great question, Chrissy, and I applaud your bravery for asking the question, because sometimes the hardest thing is just to acknowledge that we're having some difficulty, and so thank you for asking this. While I cannot tell you when it's time to go or if you need to stay, I think that I can offer some perspectives and perhaps some ways to look at our relationships, whether it's romantic, our relationship with a job or a boss, a relationship with a friend, or some other pattern behavior in our life. Hopefully I can offer some perspectives that can help you shift the way that you look at it and maybe gain some new insight. I think the first thing to acknowledge is that if we are asking this question, is this good for me anymore, or should I stay or should I go? I think the question in and of itself is a sign that something needs to change. Now, the fact that something needs to change doesn't mean that we have to leave necessarily, but what I think it does mean is that there needs to be a shift in the dynamic so that we can feel healthier or more connected or safer or more satisfied or what have you. I think the first thing that we can ask ourselves when we're finding ourselves dissatisfied or unsure if we should still be here with this relationship is it sustainable? If what I have now is as good as it gets, if the difficulties and the patterns and the cycles that we seem to come around and around and around back to over and over again, because I think implied in the question is the fact that we are working on it, right? Should I work harder or should I let go? So I think the question implies that we're already doing some work. And if what you have and where you are is as good as it gets, or if this pattern is going to be a chronic cycle in your relationship, is it sustainable? Can you stay for 6 more days or 6 more weeks or 6 more months or 6 more years? Project into this time next year, November of 2019. Can I still be where I am in this relationship for another year? That oftentimes puts it in check and allows us to say yes or no. I think another thing to acknowledge is that oftentimes we may want to go, we may have the desire to leave, but we think, well, this person is actually a really nice guy or a really nice boss, or, it's not that bad, but I just don't feel satisfied. I think one of the marks of spiritual maturity especially is that it's okay to leave without someone needing to be the bad guy or the enemy. I think oftentimes we feel like we have to justify our desire to leave because things aren't super, super bad, or it's not really dismal, or I'm not really suffering, I'm just kind of dissatisfied, or I know that I really want to leave, but I can't find a way to break it to my partner or bring myself to realize that just because someone is a nice person or just because a job is perfectly okay doesn't mean that it's for you. I think especially when we're looking at longer term relationships or things that we've been doing for a while, oftentimes in the beginning it's a perfect fit. But over time, we go through changes in terms of what we desire and what we want and what our priorities are and where we want to focus and where we want to go in our life. And as those things change, that is going to affect our relationships. And sometimes it's simply a matter of I'm starting to go right and you're starting to go left, and we just aren't on the same path anymore. I think another thing that you can do is a journaling exercise, because a lot of times I feel like we get stuck in our head and we are rehashing and replaying the same questions and the same scenarios over and over and over that we just become so unclear about what we're even thinking or feeling. So write it down. Sit down with a pen and paper and write, when I am in my relationship, most predominantly I feel, and then write down your thoughts, your feelings, and what you experience predominantly. Then write, when I think about my partner or my boss or my job, most predominantly I feel, and then write. Next question, when I think of staying in my relationship, most predominantly I feel, and when I think of leaving my relationship, most predominantly I feel. You may find yourself surprised by what comes out through this journaling process, because sometimes the act of seeing it written down in black and white and pen and paper in front of us is the thing that we need to really clarify exactly how it is that we feel. I think another important thing to acknowledge is this, and that is sometimes we put off making a decision because we don't want to hurt the other person, or we feel like, I really want to leave my relationship and I'm unhappy, but on the other hand, I really don't want to hurt my partner. And both of these things can be very true. It may very well be true that I don't want to hurt my partner. It may very well be true that I want to leave or that I'm not satisfied in my job or my relationship anymore. But a lot of the stress and the suffering and the anxiety comes from the fact that we are trying to hold on to these two truths at the same time. And at some point, we're going to have to decide which one is more important. Either not wanting to hurt my partner and staying is more important, or honoring the fact that I'm frustrated or disillusioned or dissatisfied or unhappy and honoring in that and letting that be the most important truth. Because I can't hang on to both of these things without some pain and suffering. At some point, I'm going to have to decide to let go of one of them and let that truth fall away. Here's the last thing that I'll leave you with. I think a lot of times what I hear people talk about, especially in regards to relationships and making change, is acknowledging that change is going to be uncomfortable. Even positive change is going to be uncomfortable. And so sometimes we hold ourselves back by saying, well, I want to wait until it's the right time, or I want to wait until these things are in place, or I want to wait until so-and-so is in a different place, or what have you. I think that waiting until the right time oftentimes is code for, I want to wait until this decision is easy. And sometimes in life, a decision is not meant to be easy. Sometimes aligning with our truth means that I'm going to have to disappoint someone, or that someone is going to be disappointed or unhappy, or my decision may cause them some pain or some suffering. What I know to be true is in relationships, sometimes the catalyst for change and transformation is when we come together, and sometimes the catalyst for change and transformation is when we part. So, do the work. Ask the questions, get clear, get honest, and do some inventory, and hopefully you'll be able to see more clearly what it is that it's time to do. Thank you for the question. I hope that this helps.